We're live. Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. This is Kristen. Uh, it's our welcome to Pop broadcast. For this episode, we will focus on security, and today we are having Sean from Hyperbridge with us today. But before we kick it off, because both our camera have some issues today, so we just talk. Uh, we just talk. So, but there's no videos. So, uh, but after that, we will summarize our conversation into a article. So, uh, uh, it, so for the audience, if you like our conversation and it's cool to to just listen it as well. So if you like our conversation, you can also share it into your social media and your friends. And thank you so much. And so without further ado, let's kick it off. On February 14, 2026, Hyperbridge paused its bridging operation after identifying a technical limitation in the Polkadot runtime. The issue was resolved and operation resumed on February 19 with no loss of funds. So, uh, first, to clarify for the audience, this was not an exploit, not a hack, not a protocol failure, but the pause still created some concern in the community. So I think to set up some context for our conversation, firstly, I would invite Sean to, walk us through what exactly happened and how the team resolved it.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and yeah,
Mhm.
very happy to share some of the insights as to the issue that occurred on our transition from the parachain model to the parathread model. So, generally Polkadot is a blockchain that is able to validate other blockchains,
Mhm.
right? I'm not going to go into the specifics of how it does this, but the contract that Polkadot has with the blockchains that it validates is that it's the Polkadot consensus and the Polkadot finality proofs are also can also be used as finality proofs for its validated blockchain. So whether that's supposed to be a parathread, whether that's supposed to be a parachain as well. I myself, I'm very familiar with
Mhm.
the internals of the Polkadot protocol as a former contributor to the Polkadot protocol. And when we got moved from the parachain model to the parathread model, my CTO David actually brought something up in the chat. He was like, our prover was no longer working, so we have a prover. It's open source, by the way. It's in our repo if you're interested. Our prover was no longer working because it said our Power ID is not found on Polkadot, right?
Mhm.
And I said, well, yeah, that makes sense because we're no longer a parachain. We're now a parathread. And I thought that this was harmless. And I just assumed that we would just need to readjust the way we fetched proofs from Polkadot to account for the new parathread model. But upon further inspection, we then discovered that the assumption that we had made that this contract between Polkadot and the blockchains that it validates, as to provide these blockchains with finality proofs had been broken for parathreads. Now, I don't follow, the Polkadot code base often.
Mhm.
You know, we're very busy working on our own infrastructure, working on applications, you
Yeah.
know, integrations, business development. This is our primary focus at the moment. From our perspective, the infrastructure currently that we have works, and we really should only need to maybe periodically update our Polkadot SDK, stuff like that. We shouldn't need to like keep up to date necessarily with the Polkadot protocol's development.
Sure.
But like I said, upon further inspection, we discovered that the Polkadot protocol explicitly excludes parathreads from consensus proofs. And the minute we were no longer a parathread, no longer get proofs of Hyperbridge. Remember, Hyperbridge is this coprocessor that does a lot of verification on behalf of its connected networks. And in order for the external networks to see what is happening on Hyperbridge, to get messages from Hyperbridge, they have to verify Polkadot's proofs, which in turn verifies Hyperbridge, right? And so because of that break in transmission, Hyperbridge was effectively stalled. So it was not that there was a pause or anything. I mean, of course, we also have the ability to pause the contracts on all the different networks to prevent applications from sending messages, just as a safety precaution, right? I think typically contracts have this pause mechanism under the case where there might be exploits or there might be unforeseen circumstances. We've never had to use that system before, but we had it just in case something happened. I didn't really believe anything would happen, but during our audits, this was something that was brought up to have.
Okay.
So essentially the bridge could no longer pass messages between the networks. Of course, you could still send Hyperbridge, but Hyperbridge will not be able to relay those messages to their destination chain because it has no way to prove those messages to its destination network.
Sure.
And so basically the bridge was frozen, and we began to initiate pauses of our contracts across all the different networks so that people don't try to make transactions. So essentially, if you try to use the token bridging, or maybe you have a third-party application that you try to bridge some messages with Hyperbridge, our contracts would revert to prevent you from sending a message that may never get delivered, pending we resolve this issue, of course. So I would say that essentially what happened was that there was this break of contract between what Polkadot does and the parachains that live on top of Polkadot. Now, why the Polkadot fellows and team decided to exclude parathreads from, the consensus mechanism, I cannot really comment on this. And I think it makes more sense to ask these people directly.
Okay. Yeah, from the whole, process, Hyperbridge really, did a very good job because you pause the bridge very fast to prevent the loss of funds, potentially loss of funds. So to make sure the safety of the Hyperbridge, is it, to pause the Hyperbridge, is there some inbuilt mechanism in Hyperbridge? Is there, yeah, and under what circumstances would this in-depth, would this mechanism start to work?
So on the Hyperbridge network, there is actually no mechanism, like on the Hyperbridge parachain, there's no mechanism to pause the bridge.
Okay.
We don't have any pallets that can enforce a runtime pause of all transactions. But on the contracts that live on all the different networks, we have the ability to pause either outgoing messages, incoming messages, or both of them.
Okay.
And like I said, we've never had a reason to use this. And the reason that this mechanism even exists in the first place is because of the auditors that initially audited the Hyperbridge protocol. We were audited by SR Labs, and SR Labs is the auditor for Polkadot. They're the ones who audit the Polkadot protocol. And they recommended that we have a system in place for pausing the bridge. And this is just according to them, it's standard practice for, protocols like bridges and even DeFi protocols. And they're like that. This is standard practice for anything that handles money, funds. It's a good idea to have the ability to pause the contracts if there's an issue. Now, we've never had to use, like I said, we've never had to use this mechanism in the whole, I think Hyperbridge has now been live for over a year until, on February 14th.
Yeah, for sure. And let me ask a slightly sensitive question. It's good to know that Hyperbridge was audited by the third party, and they selected some potential risk in advance. But major protocols go through multiple third-party security audits. But interestingly, some of the biggest hacks in crypto have also happened heavily audited projects. So, in your view, how effective are security audit really? And yeah.
I mean, we are also very skeptical of auditors in general. I'm not going to lie to you. And that is why we made a very specific choice to go with SR Labs, who were the auditors for the Polkadot protocol. We believe that they have a lot of experience auditing multi-chain protocols specifically. The reality is that our system is very well understood by its developers. I myself, having worked at Polkadot, moving on to Composable Finance, where we built the first implementation of the IBC protocol outside of Cosmos, we have a lot of experience with multi-chain protocols ourselves. In fact, we probably should be auditing other people's multi-chain protocols. And, in the full year that Hyperbridge, more than a year now that Hyperbridge has existed, processed over $500 million in transaction volume and almost $100,000 transactions. We've not had a security incident, and our system is such that it is fully decentralized. Like, anyone can submit anything to Hyperbridge. Like, I think no one understands how very, very secure our systems are. External bridges have to whitelist the people who can submit messages to their bridges. They have to have a specific whitelist set of people who are trusted to claim what messages should be passed around. But our system is completely open source. You can go onto our Explorer and you can find that now we have over 130 relayers who are people who are just telling Hyperbridge what messages to pass around, and they do this with cryptographic proofs, right? So, in our experience, the best auditor is the person who writes the code.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand what you're building, then maybe you shouldn't build it, especially in this new age of vibe coding and AI, right? That's kind of our engineering philosophy.
Yeah, you should know your protocol very well. So, talking about the audit, there's already audits. There's AI audit, start working, and yeah, to make sure the security of the protocol. Yeah, it is true that you have to know about your protocol. And do you think the AI audit will help? It will help you to build a more security protocol. Would you choose to use them if there are some good AI audits?
I think our perspective on audits is that it's best to do audit contests
Oh.
or audit bounties, like they call them, where we put up a bounty and essentially we allow anyone to claim that bounty if they can find a vulnerability in our protocol.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is the best method for audits. This has been it's been very instrumental for a lot of protocols in
Mm-hmm.
getting their audit like protocols battle tested before they go to mainnet. So, for instance, Uniswap, one of the largest protocols by TVL across all of their contracts, they do these audits. They do these kinds of bounty audits, and it goes on for months. It goes on. I think V4 before it got launched went on for 6 months of this audit contests, and a lot of people found a lot of bugs and a lot of critical vulnerabilities in the protocol before they eventually then went on to mainnet. So I think that this is, in our perspective, the best way to get
Mm-hmm.
audited by a community of people rather than a few select people who simply just recycle typical vulnerabilities that they find in other protocols into yours
Mm-hmm.
and not really do the in-depth analysis, right? To see how they can best exploit your protocol.
Yeah, I agree with you. Community, uh, they have passion to the protocol and they knows more about other, the third party audits in some extent. Talking about the security, I think there's a third party audit, AI audit, even though there are some community, contest for audit. Uh, and at the same time, uh, in Web3 industry, there has already several incidents for bridge exploit happened. It seems to for the it it seems that there's no lessons were taken because uh, for example, we've already seen several major incidents this year, and from your perspective, um, why this bridge attack keep happening? The why why there's no lesson was taken? And structurally speaking, what makes bridge such attractive target for attackers?
I think the reality is the people don't understand what they're working on. And I know it sounds a little arrogant of me to say these things,
Hmm.
but the truth is that blockchain systems are, they're basically new areas of research in terms of cryptography, in terms of distributed systems, in terms of mechanism design.
Hmm.
And a lot of people who build products for blockchains don't actually know the full scale, the full breadth, and the full depth of what they are dealing with. They are mostly here to make a quick profit. And so once you start to look at the industry from this perspective that, oh no, people are just here to make a quick profit, then a lot of the decisions that they make starts to make a lot of sense.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think for builders, if you decide to build a protocol, you have to be responsible for that, because there will be so much follow up concerns happening. So okay, let's talk about some trendy uh, stuff. You know, as the industry evolves, uh, the application, the trends Swift changing a lot. In previous, it might be game and NFT and so on. And nowadays, I think RWA uh, is the is the trendy for every ecosystem. So, do you see uh, the potential risk of RWA use cases?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not really seeing any risks aside from the obvious counterparty risk that is associated with these kinds of assets,
Hmm.
which is to say that the issuer may not be backing the assets with the actual real world assets.
Hmm.
But I think that this is remedied by having issuers that are public companies. So, for instance, I believe Circle is now a public company, which also means that their balance sheet is also public, kind
Hmm.
of like a blockchain.
Hmm.
I think that this is the best model for asset issuers moving forward.
Okay. And another big trend right now is AI. Do you think AI could introduce new types of tech or security threats in crypto?
What I think AI will do is simply accelerate the discovery of vulnerabilities,
Hmm.
of rather existing vulnerabilities in existing protocols. And in this sort of weird way, it will also harden the ecosystem, right? Because vulnerabilities will be discovered much faster and they will
Hmm.
be exploited much quicker. Which means that, like, if we have this sort of adversarial environments where AIs are the ones scanning the blockchain for vulnerabilities, then the protocols that make it on the other side are essentially, the, like we say in the Darwinian evolution, the strongest and the fittest.
Hmm. Yeah. And talking about AI, on the other side, do you have any plans to integrate AI into our own development roadmap?
We are exploring this new agentic era and what it means for software products as a whole, right? We are seeing the trend for software products to introduce AI systems as the user interface for the product.
Hmm.
I'm still holding out that this is actually going to be the way in which the world uses software products.
Hmm.
It's possible, definitely, but
Hmm.
will take some time before that, total switch happens. But we will, in fact, yes, we will play with this new idea of AI as the user interface for software products.
Okay, cool. Back to our security topic. Looking at the bigger picture, uh, uh, as you mentioned that uh, if you want to make sure the protocol is safe, as a builder, you should pay more attention. You have to be responsible for your protocol. But could security be built into the protocol or to be something that be a part of the system? Because now, in your opinion, that the security, the builders, the developers are responsible for uh, the security. Mm. And so is there some uh, so so also there's other parties like the infrastructure parties and there's a lot of applications and they're taking different roles. So if you are asking that the developer should be responsible, it's humans is elusive. So could the security stuff be a something built into the system?
Yeah, I mean that's essentially our philosophy is that our system must be designed to be resilient. And I use the word here resilient because like you said, there could be failures across the stack. You could have RPC providers that lie to you. Imagine you have a bridge where you essentially trust a set of people, but these set of people, maybe their RPC provider gets compromised, right? And then feeds their systems with false data or false information. And then they in turn feed that false information into the bridge. Technically, they were doing their jobs, but because, their infrastructure was compromised and the protocol is not resilient to these kinds of attacks, then the protocol itself is also compromised. So when you're designing systems, and I'm speaking very abstractly now, you need to, especially for blockchain systems, you need to essentially operate from this perspective that nothing can be trusted. And this is the philosophical position that Hyperbridge operates in. Nothing can be trusted. Everything has to be proven.
Yeah.
And this is, I'd say, the cornerstone of our security model. This is also what allows us to have relayers that can rely on public RPCs. Even if the public RPCs lie to them, they will still be unable to prove these lies.
Sure.
So my ideology is simple, which is that if you're building for blockchain systems, you need to not trust anything. The minute you introduce a trusted layer, a trusted person, a trusted account, that becomes your attack vulnerability. That becomes your attack vector. That becomes, a backdoor, honestly. Even for maybe the team, members of the team that built the protocol.
Yeah. Good point. Okay. We've touched different aspects about security, the AI, the bridge, and who should be responsible. I think to wrap up our conversation, and how about you share about what are the biggest priorities for Hyperbridge in 2026, and what should be the community? What should the community be most excited about?
Yeah, so we continue to work towards hub integration. At the moment, there's quite a few things that Hub has to be fixed on Hub before Hyperbridge can be deployed on Hub and can facilitate cross-chain flows to Hub. That is our highest priority at the moment for DeFi use cases. But I'll be very honest with you, we are now exploring a new application for cross-chain payment flows. So as it stands, there are two demand drivers for cross-chain asset movement. There's DeFi and then there's payments. So when I say DeFi, I mean people moving their assets to trade, to farm yield, that sort of thing. Maybe I bridge to Polygon to go and trade on Poly markets, or maybe I bridge to Hyperliquid to go trade on Perps. In our experience, demand for DeFi or DeFi as a demand driver for cross-chain is very epileptic. So if token prices are not doing too well, as we recently saw in the past few months, demand for, cross-chain asset movements for DeFi drops. But we've been seeing demand for cross-chain asset movement for payments go up constantly. And so we are now starting to focus more on payments as a market segment for our business. I would say one more thing is that, payments is still very, very broad. It doesn't really, I would say, capture what exactly is driving this demand for payments, right? And actually, we've discovered that the demand for payments is actually coming from on-chain FX. People are paying each other on-chain so that they can eventually redeem these stablecoin payments to their local bank accounts.
Yeah.
But we're also seeing something happen, right? We're seeing more and more stablecoins for fiat come on chain, right? We're seeing the Japanese stablecoin come on chain, the Brazilian real stablecoin come on chain, the Indonesian rupiah come on chain, and I believe that eventually every major country will have their own stablecoin on chain. And so our thesis is that all these stablecoins are going to bring the FX market on chain as well.
Oh, okay.
The FX market is a $9 trillion a day market. A lot of it, of course, is highly speculative. People are trading the markets with leverage, but a lot of it is also driven by cross-border payments, cross-border remittances, and, just general trade. And so right now we are focusing on a new product, which we call HyperFX, which will allow for people to trade stablecoins, not just cross-chain, but also on the same chain that they're on. And this is a huge product strategy for us for the rest of, I would say, the rest of the existence of Hyperbridge, because like I said, we have to drill down on why people are moving money cross-chain and figure out ways in which we can better serve them. Of course, there'll be more news about this. We'll be making announcements in the coming weeks, but this is our new product strategy.
Okay. Good to know. Last year, I attended the Hong Kong FinTech Week, and I found out 90% of the booths, their payment applications or payment project. So I think payment is a very good option to do. Okay. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for the audience being here to watch. After that, we will summarize our conversation into an article, and there will be a highlight clip. And hope that our conversation could help our audience know more about the security situation in blockchain industry. And thank you so much thank you so much for everyone. And that's all for today. Have a nice day, Sean.
Thank you, and have a nice day as well. Bye.
Bye.